Welcome to STMU-SET Spotlight, the podcast where we explore science, community, and sustainability. I'm your host, Dr. Paul Uhlig, and today we're focusing on water, especially here in Texas, where drought continues to impact our ecosystems and communities. Joining us is Dr. Evelynn Mitchell, Chair of the Department of Environmental Science and Sustainability. Dr. Mitchell, welcome.
Thanks, Paul. I'm excited to be here with you and discuss what water issues we have in our state.
It's great to have you with us. So let's start with, why is water such a critical issue for Texas right now, and how are current drought conditions impacting our state?
Well, as you mentioned, Paul, we are in a period of drought and have been for several years. And so that's affecting a lot of the different ways that we use water in the state. We use it for agriculture. We use it for home water supply. We use it for businesses. We now even use it for data centers. And so having an understanding of how the water is needing to be distributed with our growing population as well is an important issue. And for that reason, we really need to look at not just what kind of water projects need to be developed, but also the conservation aspect as we're building plans for the future.
So what kind of water-related research is your department involved in?
So our department tends to focus on projects that work with our local community partners, different entities like the Edwards Aquifer Authority, the San Antonio River Authority, working with and learning from the San Antonio water systems. And with those experiences, we try to get our students real-world experiences in going out to do field work and lab work that not only add to their education, but then also give data back to help solve the science problems that we need to solve.
Is there a specific project that represents your department's hands-on learning style?
Well, one that I'm doing with my hydrogeology class this semester is really a good example of how we work with those community partners. So the Edwards Aquifer Authority has a site called the Field Research Park out near Morgan's Wonderland, and they do a lot of studies of that landscape being a natural landscape to understand what's happening with the water when we get a rain event, where it's going, how much of it's going back into the aquifer. They have provided our class with some data from 2 different watersheds that they have been able to measure the runoff from. And we're looking at how much of the water from individual rain events goes into that aquifer, how much of it runs off, how much is leaving the system through evaporation or through transpiration from plants. And with the results that we're working on in the class, we hope to feed that back to the Edwards Aquifer Authority so then they can use the science to see where they want to go in management, if there are other projects that they want to do to help study that system.
Wow. So what's the value of involving students in community-focused research?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, it gives them the experience and the confidence to go out as scientists and really study these landscapes so that after they graduate, they have some applied experience to take into the workplace. The other part is that with us providing these real-world projects, our students tend to really get invested. They see that there's an actual value, that what they're coming up with isn't just a problem that they're filling in the answer for a test, but that they're actually being applied, their answers are actually being applied to solving some of these challenges.
So how is your department helping communities prepare for and manage drought?
Well, we do different things. On campus, we are trying to look into our water resources here. Through the Laudato Si committee, we have pursued an ASHE STARS audit. So we are looking at the campus as a whole to see what we can do to become more sustainable. And that includes water as an area. And the campus, actually, the facilities department already does some programs through SAWS to try and be more conservative. We're going to be looking at where we can create more of an impact in conserving our water resources.
So what new technologies or tools are you excited about?
Well, I've actually learned a lot in the last couple of years getting to work with our different partners. One of the the tools that I know is being used, it's not exactly new, but the San Antonio Water Systems is using what's called an aquifer storage and recovery system. So when we have large rain events and the Edwards Aquifer takes in a lot more water, that allows them to pump out a larger amount, or to, if it's not being used, if everything that's there that they're allowed to take isn't being used, they can then move it and store it into another aquifer south of town. The benefit to this is that by storing that water underground, it's not subject to evaporation. So there's less loss for that water. And then when we do have those drought events, they're able to pull that water back out of the Carrizo Aquifer, pump that out, put that back into our main distribution system and use it. So that's a technology that I think is really innovative. It's something that was developed here in South Texas, and it really helps us a lot. But as far as other strategies, the part of the work at the EAA Field Research Park is looking at some of the landscaping opportunities and how by building things like bioswales, rather than the water just running off downhill, every time you have a rain event, it's kind of a terracing type of idea that by creating barriers, natural barriers in the landscape that house plants and other features, then that helps keep the water from running off down the hill and actually traps it so that it can infiltrate into the aquifer better.
So what are some actions that people can take to support sustainable water use?
Well, there's a few things. First of all, you need to look a little bit at your landscaping. What is it that you're planting? What's water hungry? Most native plants don't actually require as much water. And so look at what it is you're planting. Go to some of the garden centers in town, like Rainbow Gardens, find out what's native, what uses less water, and how you can limit what you're using for watering those plants. Of course, always looking at the fixtures in your home. What is going to be low flow toilets, things that use less water, fixing those leaks, making sure that you don't have more water use than you expect. But then actually the final one I want to mention is something that might be a surprise to people, is that you actually want to think about not just what you're doing with your water usage, but what you're doing with your energy usage. A lot of people don't realize that energy comes from using water to create steam, to create the power. A lot of traditional power sources rely on a water source. And so if we want to cut back on our water use, cutting back on our energy use has a big impact on that as well.
That's definitely a hidden area for water use.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say to students considering environmental science?
Well, water is a pretty essential resource. I mean, I think back in Mark Twain's time, he said whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting over. So it's been an important resource for people for all of our civilization. And we're always going to need people to help ensure that that resource is present. There's a lot of real world opportunities in our program to get involved in understanding the science and participating in the conservation of water in the San Antonio area. And we have a lot of former students from our program that work around the country in water related areas. But, even though we're talking about water today, water's only one area where we really need smart people to solve environmental problems. And so if there's an environmental problem in your community that concerns you and you want to study that, we can help you do that here at St. Mary's. We have community partners in lots of different areas, Texas Parks and Wildlife, Bat Conservation International, the zoo, Cibolo Center for Conservation. So if you have an idea about something that you want to do to make the world better, we can help you find those solutions.
I think students will love that. So one final question, more of a personal nature.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to ask you, is there a book that you've read and perhaps reread that you plan to read again that has particular meaning for you?
Well, since we're talking about water today, the book I would mention is Cadillac Desert. All about the water in California, where it came from, how things got moved around in order to support the civilizations there. And, I often tell people, if you ever want to get mad about water, that's the book to read.
The title and author again?
It's Cadillac Desert, and I can't remember the author right now, but yeah.
Okay. On behalf of SET Spotlight, thank you to our guest, Dr. Evelynn Mitchell. We invite everyone to join us again for the next episode as we continue highlighting the people advancing science, engineering, and technology at St. Mary's University. Until then, elevate your excellence, shape exceptional tomorrows.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell.